motion?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All of those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We have been adjourned. Moving on to the consent agenda, approval of minutes.
Approval of the minutes from the February 7th, 2023 regular commission meeting.
Are we approving all of the things, or are we doing them all separately?
Approval of the minutes.
Just the minutes alone?
Let's
Okay.
go with that, and then I'll have you read the resolution,
Oh, okay, thank you.
our consent agenda.
Make a motion, we approve the minutes.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All of those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, do you want to read the resolution?
Sure.
please?
Resolution number R 2523, a resolution appointing a member to the tree committee. Resolution number R 2623, a resolution appointing a member to the tree committee. Resolution number R 2723, a resolution appointing a member to the community diversity committee. Resolution number R 2823, a resolution appointing a member to the Community Diversity Committee. Resolution number R 2923, a resolution appointing a member to the Community Diversity Committee. Resolution number R 3823, a resolution appointing a member to the Forest Hill Union Cemetery Board. Resolution number R 3023, a resolution of appreciation for the 2022 City of Piqua volunteers.
Okay. At this time, since we don't have the Washington Township trustees present, we will have to table Resolution R-38-23. Is there a motion to table that?
I'll make a motion to table that.
Okay. A second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All of those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That resolution has been tabled. I would need, I will make a I would make a motion to accept the consent agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All of those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Consent agenda is approved. Now, at this time also, I would like to mention that Zachary Gordon has been appointed to the Tree Committee, will serve until 2027, a 3-year term, and Philip Moyer will also serve on the Tree Committee. That is also a 3-year position. In the Diversity Committee, Linda Harvey has been appointed, Paul Perkins has been appointed, and Lisa Baker has been appointed. And that would be a 1-year term. Okay. So moving on to resolution. Actually, let's talk about the Piqua volunteers. Do you want to say something, Amy?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Good evening. This resolution that was approved on the consent agenda was born out of an idea from the City Park Board. We had been talking with the board about recognizing volunteers in the community that do things to help with city projects, and also the desire just to appreciate and thank those that serve on boards and committees. And so this is the first attempt at compiling some information about who those volunteers are and what they've done in the community over the past year. And I will place a caveat that this was our first attempt, and we are quite certain that we have missed some people and some groups. If anyone knows of anyone that we did miss, please let us know. The mayor is very interested in this continuing to be an annual or semi-annual recognition of volunteers, and we would certainly get anyone that we missed recognized. So thank you for doing that this evening.
All right, thank you, Amy. At this time, we'll have Jim list for us some of the 2022 volunteers that serve on boards and committees.
It's my privilege to acknowledge a number of people's names and hope I do justice to the pronunciations of everything. First of all, we're looking at boards and committees, and this is a list of people, individuals, who serve on various boards and committees for the city, and I will read through them quickly. April Dankworth, Billy Joe Simmons, Bradley Bupp, Brian Deal, Brian Fox, Carol Austin, Kathy Oda, Charlene Blair, Clint Bostic, Pat Jenkins, David Fishbach, David Roth, David Scott, Earl Severs III, Eddie Harvey, Eric White, Gary Koenig, Gene Hill, Greg Blankenship, Craig Monte, Greg Monte, sorry, James Denson, James Denson, Jordan Bates, Jeff Lang, Jim Oda, Joe Drapp, Joe Wilson, John Alexander, Jonathan Roman, Josephine Davidson, Curtis Sawyer, Kyle Cooper, Lisa Baker, Lisa Fote, Marcia Garrett, Mary Tolman, Matthew Bolin, Mike Gutman, Mike McGonigal, Natalie Young, Nick Johnson, Nolan Campbell, Aranda Clark, thank you, Paul Simmons, Phil Moyer, Doug Haynes, and I would mention that Doug is deceased, but did serve part of the year, I think, on a committee. Randy Simon Seri, Roger Bateman, Ron Pinkerton, Russ Fashioner, and I would mention that Russ is the current winner of the award from the Pickwick Community Foundation for meritorious service to the community. So special congratulations. I haven't seen Russ blush many times, but he picked up on that one. Scott Razor, Shannon Brandon, Sharon Lucas, Sherry Collett, Stephanie Davey, Stephanie Gunter, Steve Drossel, Stu Shear, Susan Carter, Tom Christie, Wade Davis, and Wayne Davey.
And I will have the privilege of reading the groups of our city, Friends of the Piqua Parks. That would be Don Smith, Edna Stifel, Jim Vetter, Rush Fashioner, and Ruth Kuhn. Protecting Our Waterways would be Andy Groh, Bob Lucky, Cornelia Dixon, Doug Stingle, Jeff Balta, Jeff Lang, Jim Mextroth, Justin Hedrick, Lee Geiger, Mary Lang, Randy Kirchner, Rich Bowers, Ron Stump, Taylor Gertner, Tom Beaker, Tom Hudson. The Candlewood Boulevard Committee, Bill Chenal, Chuck Peltier, Dave Humrickhouse, Earl Wagner, Mike Dankworth. The Invasive Species Group, Brandy Lawson, Brenda Wilson, Chad Lawson, Jeff Lang, Joe Schneider, Joe Wilson, Josie Straka, Kirsten French, Phil Moyer, Randy Kirchner, Terry Levy. The Greenleaf Garden Club, Barbara Jeffers, Betty Thompson, Cheryl Sanders, Gail Reardon, Judy Quinter, Karen McNeil, Karen Ragan, Lisa Horner, Penny Adams. Others, Builders Club, Community Garden participants, Crane Pumps, Eric Campbell, Eric Scott family, Four Seasons Garden Club, Jill Ventura, Key Club, Mark Wyan, Neighbors Helping Neighbors, Joe Wilson, PHS Volleyball Team, Southview Neighborhood Association, Jim Vetter, the Conservationists LLC, Terry Levy. Are any of you folks present? Is anybody present from that group?
Yes.
Congratulations. All right. Thank you so much, everyone. I wanted to intentionally read these names because it shows how much our citizens are involved in our community, and it helps to move us forward, obtaining goals. And I also applaud the efforts of all of these people who volunteered last year. I'm sure there are others out there, like like Amy said, this is just the beginning, and we want to continue this. So if you have other people in your mind that you know have volunteered, we'd like to hear and report your names to Amy or myself or one of us commissioners. We'd be happy to raise them up and acknowledge them. Thank you very much.
And we can say at this time, that we still have some openings on some other boards and places.
sure
and so
do.
We're looking for citizens to step up and fill those. And so this is a partial list.
Yeah, thank you. Moving on to new business, we have resolution number R-31-23.
A resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into a collective bargaining agreement with the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Workers, Incorporated, AFSCME, Council 8, Local 984.
Good evening, Commissioners. The AFSCME contract represents our skilled laborer and clerical unit employees. This resolution will replace our AFSCME collective bargaining agreement, which expired on 12/31/2022, and the current agreement will be in play until December 31st, 2025.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from commissioners? Any questions or comments from our citizens? Hearing none, I make a motion that we adopt resolution number R-31-23.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All of those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution carried. Resolution number R-32-23.
A resolution awarding a contract to Emerson Process Management Power and Water Solutions Incorporated for gas turbine control system upgrades for the power system.
Thank you, Commission. Today I come before you requesting approval to move forward with a contract with Emerson Process Management Power and Water Solutions. As you may or may not recall, back in 2011, one of the major maintenance items on these gas turbines was the control systems that were the original systems from the units when they were installed. Piqua number 8 gas turbine is a GE Frame 5 unit and was installed new in Piqua in 1971. Piqua's number 9 gas turbine is a 1965 Westinghouse 191 combustion turbine. It was purchased used from Hydroelectric Power Commission of Ontario and installed in Piqua in 1990. The use of these combustion turbines, these backup generating units, has changed significantly over the years. The reason these two units were originally installed were for reliability reasons. At one time, the city was not connected with the number of outside high voltage interconnecting lines that we have now. Power System Management actually had to sue Dayton Power and Light at the time to get the right to get additional interconnects to improve the reliability to the city, and they were successful doing that. So that need is somewhat past. We still have the ability to use the units as a backup power source, but the real benefit is a cost-saving tool for our customers. This upgrade that was performed in 2011 with Emerson, it basically brought those control systems into the current best-of-class operating systems for power production units. These units have performed well, as most software and computer systems. Unfortunately, they have a limited life. These software and computer systems don't have the life and aren't supported as long as traditional systems were back in the 70s. So Emerson has been working with us, recommending we upgrade for a number of years. We've been pushing it off, and over the last 12 years, and we decided that now is probably the time to do it. During that time period, just to remind Commission, the cost savings from operating these units at opportune times from 2010 to 2022, 13 years, $16.75 million, about $1.3 million a year. So this is a costly upgrade the original upgrade of the control systems that was done back in 2011, which included some other components that will remain in service after this upgrade is complete, was just short of $1 million. So we'd like to move forward with the upgrade. It will help with support moving forward. I really feel like this will get us through the next 10-plus years, just as this previous system has. We spent a fair amount of time with the Piqua Energy Board reviewing this at our January meeting. Really kind of showed all the advantages and what these systems do for it. It's really hard to explain the amount of data that these systems provide for us. It's really been an invaluable tool in terms of troubleshooting as we run. And Piqua Energy Board unanimously recommended City Commission approval at that January 31st, 2023 meeting. I'll take any questions.
It'd be interesting, this is a comment, not a question, but how many of us have upgraded our computers in that time period? We've done it 2 or 3 times, and so it's hard to believe that we can operate a high-efficiency electric system without doing the same thing. My opinion, obviously.
Yeah, like I said, unfortunately, it's kind of the nature of beast these days, and I always push off major expenditures as long as we can, and I feel like we've done a good job of doing that. But for support moving forward and for the value that these units provide for our electric customers, it's important that we maintain that reliability.
Are there any questions or comments from commission?
Nope. Thank you for the cost savings.
Yeah. Are there any questions or comments from our citizens?
I had one real quick. You said looking at it being implemented in late 2023 or early 2024, and that's where we were looking at the potential. That's why we have such a high contingency is potential cost increases.
Yeah, at the last Energy Board meeting, the board recommended with the rate of inflation of components these days, I really feel pretty strongly that we're going to hit the $480,000 target. And again, that's why I sought approval early in the year, so hopefully we can get these items on order and kind of knock some of that inflationary risk out of the picture.
So will that allocation come out of 2023's budget, even if they're installed in 2024?
So again, it depends on the execution of the project. If we're able to, maybe it's a possibility we complete the control upgrade on one unit in 23 and the second one in the early 24. In that case, it would be spread across 2 years, but from what I've been told, it's about 2 weeks worth of installation work. So I feel pretty strongly if we get this order placed that as long as we don't run into any kind of issues with any of the computer components, which could be a concern, that we'll get this knocked out in 2023.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second. All of those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution carried. Thank you, Ed. Resolution number R-33-23.
A resolution authorizing a purchase order to Miami County Public Health for public health services.
Good evening, Commissioners. This resolution will approve a purchase order to Miami County Public Health. If you'll all recall that in 2022, the City of Piqua joined as a partner in the Miami County General Health District, along with the cities of Tip City, Troy, all the villages and townships in the county. And each year, the Miami County Auditor determines, based on their calculations, the cost spread amongst all of the partners, and this will allow us to pay our portion of that service.
Do I understand that all the subdivisions of the county are now part of the Miami County Health Department system?
Yes, the entire county is now in one health district.
Good.
Any other questions, comments? Any citizen question or comments? Okay. I move that we adopt resolution number R-33-23.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All of those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution carried. Resolution number R-34-23.
A resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into a lease agreement with the Piqua Junior Baseball and Softball League.
Commissioners, each 3-year period, we enter into lease agreements with the local sports leagues to utilize the sports fields at Pittsburgher Park. This is for the junior baseball and softball leagues, which, as you know, provide for youth activities of baseball and softball throughout the course of the year. This is generally the same lease agreement we've entered into before. It's been modified a bit to just some semantics and be a little more user-friendly to read through the document. Frank Patrizio did review the lease agreements, and we're recommending approval at this time.
I have a couple of comments, if I can jump in at this point. Number one, the agreement calls for a payment for this for $1 per year. I'm old enough to have served on the soccer board and with the Baseball Association, and that payment has been the same, I think, for, I'm going to say 30 years, maybe longer. And I approve of that, and the reason I do is that I'm old enough also to remember taking tennis lessons when we had a recreation department, and we no longer have that. And so you have organizations like Piqua Junior Baseball and Softball who are providing training, recreational activities for youngsters in Piqua, and I think we get a good return on that value. So that first comment. Second comment, there are situations where the baseball fields and the softball fields are sometimes used by other organizations not included in this lease agreement. How is that handled?
Yeah, there's a provision in there that the sports league can enter into agreements with others to utilize the fields when they are not. And there's also a provision that the city can do that as well. If we would need use of the fields for some reason, a public event or what have you, we can do that as well.
Okay. The other is a provision that I was not familiar with, where we're asking the lessees to provide an annual audit. And I think that's an interesting provision, and I'm in favor of it. I'm just want to call that to people's attention. I don't believe that has been regularly done, and is that new or?
Well, the mayor and I were just speaking of this earlier. It has always been in there that it was a requirement. We are looking into ways that we can gain that type of information, perhaps without going through a full financial audit, which the leagues did look into, and it's about $5,000 to do a full audit with testing. Sure. So what we did this year is we required them to submit their financial records. And then a provision that we are also then looking into is utilizing the park board potentially as a clearinghouse for reviewing those financial records to get another sets of eyes on them. I do feel pretty confident with what we received from them this year that they are doing what they need to be doing. I also verified their IRS tax filings were all submitted and in place, and also verified their 501c3 status was intact. Many of those provisions hadn't always been collected in the past, so we are definitely being more forthcoming in asking for that information and making sure we have what we need to make sure that the organizations are above board and operating as they should.
And in my opinion, that benefits both organizations.
Absolutely.
It's not just for one, it's both organizations profit from having that kind of arrangement. Just a comment about the utilities. We are providing electric for lights on some situations, also the other utilities, refuge, wastewater, and those kind of things, which I think is consistent with what I've known from the past.
Yes, so we have a really true partnership with these groups who do a service for the community. And so, the city tries to provide as many resources as we can to support those activities as well. So we do provide utilities, we help with maintenance activities where we can, but then these groups are really, they really rally their troops and do a lot of field work and put their time in to maintain the fields and help out.
Last comment, Mayor Pearson and I both serve on the Friends of the Park, and we're in the process of trying to help with the alteration, if you will, of the baseball concession area. And I see Article 17 does call for a process for going through that. And I think that's a good idea. I just want citizens to be aware that those things do happen, and there are groups like Friends of the Park who are interested in upgrading the facilities, making them safe, usable, and so I think that's a good thing to have in the lease as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Are there any other comments, questions? Citizen questions or comments? Okay, I need a motion.
I'd make the motion to approve, let's see here, we're looking at, what?
3420.
R-34-23.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. All of those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution carried. Resolution number R-35-23.
A resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into a lease agreement with the Piqua Youth Football League.
Commissioners, this is the same exact lease agreement that we just discussed for baseball. This is for football. Again, the group has done a really great job of providing Little League football in our community, and they are very responsive when we ask for information from them. They've done a really great job this year, and we are asking for the continuation of a lease agreement for 3 years.
All of the above comments for this one as well. I think it's important for the public to appreciate that we have basically three organizations that constitute youth sports activities. Their needs are slightly different. I mean, it's much more expensive to provide youth football than it is youth soccer. I mean, that doesn't make a whole lot of, that's not difficult to understand. But I think the lease agreements do what we need to do to kind of specify and be helpful to those organizations as well as to ourselves as a city.
Yes, and you will see the soccer lease at the next meeting. They did ask for a couple revisions to the lease, so we're working through those now, and that will be on the next agenda.
Good. I was on that board 26 years. I think I understand a little bit about it, maybe from history, but these documents are helpful because it sets the parameters for how we're going to behave, and that's important.
Yep.
Any other questions or comments? Citizen questions or comments? I'll move that we adopt resolution number R-35-23.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All of those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution carried. Resolution number R-36-23.
A resolution authorizing an amendment to the zoning map to change the zoning designation of parcel N44-250445 from R2 to family residential to R3 multifamily residential.
Good evening, Commission. This item relates to 419 Broadway, which is the structure located at the corner of Broadway and Green Streets. It's a large, formerly a church property with an annex attached to it that I think served as their classroom space. And since the church is no longer there, the property has sat mostly vacant for quite a number of years now, with a couple different owners who had interest in trying to do some things with the property that might fit the scale and type of architecture that exists there. As you can imagine, it's rather difficult to reuse a structure that was built for such a singular use. And because of that, the zoning really comes into play with reference to how limiting it can be in terms of what you can actually do with the property. So the request that was received from the applicant is to change the zoning from R2 to R3. R3 better relates to the type of improvements that exist on the site, both in terms of the scale of the structure and the potential reuse options for the property. And also is consistent with some of the zoning to the south, and is also in line with what Code Piqua would have it be when we get to that point. At the end of the day, it really provides the new owner with a higher degree of flexibility in terms of what they could do with the property to make it work financially so that the property performs. They presented to the Planning Commission their intent and interest in what they would like to do. And the information provided at that time indicated that there'd be a pretty substantial investment being made in the property to convert the classroom area into residential living units of a nicer quality, and then also eventually figure out a use for the church space itself. While the uses are not yet entirely fleshed out and the plans are not entirely developed, for the owner to further vet those options, they're asking to rezone the property now so that they can know with confidence that these other use opportunities, the multifamily in particular, is something that they could do with this property. In the absence of that, it's really difficult for them to further model how they might be able to reuse the property and develop their plans for such. So their request is that it be rezoned from R2 to R3, going from two-family to multifamily, again, consistent with what's surrounding it to the south, and also consistent with the proposed zoning, the flex zoning that you would find in the Code Piqua document down the road. They have been responsive to the only concern that was raised at Planning Commission at the public hearing was off-street parking. And they were able to indicate that there are 5 spaces, potentially 6, available to the rear of the building that would serve the 6 residential units that they're proposing, should they be able to advance their development plans to that point. I believe the applicant is here this evening, and I'm sure he'd be happy to respond to any particular questions you might have. And before we go there, I'm happy to answer questions as well.
I grew up in
The
that church.
recommendation, pardon me, I'm remiss for not saying, the recommendation from the Planning Commission was to approve the requested zoning.
I grew up in that church. I know that building very well, and it doesn't serve it well to sit idle. That building was built, I think, in 1931 or 39. My dad was on the church council at the time when that building was built to house a national convention when 2 churches merged. And that building commonly is known as the Congregational Christian Building. My question, I guess, is, are we rezoning the whole building or just the school educational part of that?
It's the entire parcel, so it includes the structure on the corner and the school.
So the sanctuary as well as the other?
Which occupy one individual parcel, correct.
I was going to say, there are several levels of interface between the 2 parts of the building. And so, again, to have one but not both, it would make for some construction issues for somebody to convert that.
And at the end of the day, the conversion of the structure would be subject to all the applicable fire and health and zoning and building codes, and the proper plan submittals would be required. We're not at that point. This is that point in the process where they're trying to figure out if it's feasible to go down a certain path or not feasible. But those plan submittals and plan reviews would ensure the appropriate fire separation, life safety, egress, all those certain things.
My understanding was that when that building ceased to be an active congregation, there was a board of overseeing that was put in place. And I have a friend from Austin, Texas, whose mother was a member of that church, and they were active in at least trying to oversee the building. I don't know if they had any power and control. And I don't know whether that board is, that group is still in session or not. But that would be an interesting thing to ask the question. I don't want to skip over them in the process if they are still active. The other question is, my understanding in that denomination, when the church ceases to function, the quote-unquote national denomination still owns the building. And I would raise the question of is that true, number one? And if it is true, we probably need to consult with them about that, because unless someone is actively interested in starting a new church in that location, I would guess that church probably would not serve other kinds of functions. And those two questions come up to me as ways to.
Ownership has transferred on at least 2 occasions, so the church affiliation is no longer actively involved,
Okay.
nor would the governing body that you referred to have any purview over the matter. So it's the new owner who is exposed to the risk of redeveloping the property and assumed all those responsibilities.
Yeah.
I myself would like to thank the new owner for making an investment. That's, yes, sir.
I know,
I
please.
appreciate what you're
I know.
trying to do. I spend a lot of time across the street, kind of corner of the church there, the Catholic church, so I always look over that way, and to see some people living in that would be a welcome sight. And thank you for taking the time and the investment. It is an investment, so, and you're investing in our city, and appreciate that.
Are you Mr. Timmerman?
I am.
Hi.
And your address? You just have to say that when you come up.
Yeah, 4457 Horseshoe Bend Road, Troy.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you.
And I think the address, and I don't know whether this is from the auditor's office or not, but the address the church used to use was 422 Ash Street, or Broadway, 422 Broadway. So the 419 is the educational portion, but the sanctuary has a different address, at least it used to.
At 421 is what it is now.
Okay.
And then there's actually the house that's attached to the church there as well. That is 421 West Green Street.
Yeah, yeah, interesting.
And your proposal is this a 2-story structure, and you're doing 1 story, or you're doing both?
So the school is, it's actually 3 stories. The lowest level is
Fellowship Hall.
not really a basement, but because you're standing below ground level, but
Yeah.
the windows are full windows. So we're looking to revamp the middle level and the level up.
The upper level?
Yes, so.
Okay.
I have fond memories of that building, and my mother, who is now deceased, was a member of that church for multiple years, and then my father as well, so I know that building very well.
I give tours pretty frequently, so if you want.
Yeah, and we need to acknowledge that it's not been used as a church actively for some time, and the longer it sits idle, the more difficulties, and I suspect you're going to have serious roof issues with the educational portion.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Any questions? Other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there a motion to adopt?
Do we have any comments from the citizens?
Yeah.
Oh, any citizen comments? Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. All of those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution carried. Resolution number R-37-23.
A resolution to execute an economic development revolving loan agreement with Fortech USA LLC.
Thank you. Members of the commission, this pertains to the property referred to as the former Orfelt Building on South Main Street. Fortech USA acquired the property in 2016 with an interest in moving one of their production lines from their facilities in Italy to this location as they further establish their presence in the North American marketplace. Currently, they have about a 5% share of the $2.5 billion industry that they serve, which is to create the material that runs on the conveyor belts for the paper industry to allow them to create the products that they produce. They would be moving one of their existing product lines from Italy to the location on South Main Street. To do that, they need to button up some of the issues on the existing building in terms of the roof needing some repairs and some other incidental items that need to be addressed to make it suitable to operate the existing looms and other equipment in the building so that they can restart that production line. This loan would allow them to move forward with those repairs. They've already invested a substantial sum of money of their own. They're asking for this assistance so that they can bridge that gap to get these repairs in place while they're not realizing any revenue, so that then they can flip the switch and get the equipment up and operating, start bringing jobs to the location and produce revenues and be able to pay the loan back. This loan would be over a 4-year term at very attractive interest rates. And the resulting outcome would be improvements to the existing bricks and mortar at this location, and also over the next 5 to 10 years as they restart the operations, creation of 15 to 21 jobs is what they anticipate, with an average salary of $60,000. So we're very excited to be able to hopefully support them in moving forward. You'll recall this is the program that the commission set up like last year, the Economic Development Revolving Loan Fund. And this is exactly, in my mind, the purpose of that program, to be able to support local businesses that have needs that are otherwise difficult to finance, but in financing them and supporting them will allow them to continue to grow and expand in our community and create new jobs. Happy to try to respond to any questions you might have.
Having lived in that neighborhood and watching the activity at that building, my impression, which is not scientific, is that they've been taking a lot of things out of that building and not bringing much in. And so my curiosity is, have they made a pledge to bring things in, or is this is a well wish, or is there any kind of written statement of intent to bring jobs to Piqua? And
Sure. As part of the process for them requesting the loan, there's business plan and the application, financials, all the appropriate underwriting documents that are received and reviewed. We're going to get that light fixed, by the way.
I hope so.
And,
let the light shine down.
yeah. So the Economic Development Incentive Committee that was created as a part of the EDRLF has received and reviewed all those documents to determine if the project and the request is worthy of the loan assistance. It was their recommendation that the loan be approved. What you're witnessing is there was a lot of old equipment in the building that, quite frankly, was past its useful life. So they were removing the obsolete equipment, just trying to clean the space out so that they could really get their hands on what needed to happen with the building to make it operational again. There's some looms in there that are still functioning, but they will bring their ninjas, they call them. They're experts from Italy who know these machines inside and out and make the necessary repairs to get them up and operational. Obviously, as they do that, they don't want to have water leaking through the roof when they're trying to get them restarted. They were actually here in 2020, right at in March, and the news hit, and they had to get on the planes and get back to Italy before they were stuck here when COVID outbreak occurred. So it's delayed their intentions by a couple, 2 or 3 years, but they're now back and fully committed to moving forward with this project. And honestly, they had done business with Oberfelt previously, and had they known that the business was going to close and shutter, they would have bought the business while it was still operational, but it just didn't work out that way. So now that it's been shut down, it's more work to turn it back on.
How many projected jobs did they?
15 to 21 is what they anticipate over the next 5 to 10 years. So they'll be ramping up once they get the equipment back online and be bringing one of their production lines from Italy to this plant. And then they anticipate adding other production lines here as well.
And what are the repayment terms for the citizens?
It's a 4-year term. They'd be paying over the course of 4 years with the note due in full at the end of 4 years if they don't pay it off sooner. And the way we structured the interest rates is it incentivizes them to pay it back sooner if they can.
Okay.
Obviously, the goal is to get the money back in the kitty and redistribute it to the next business.
Just for review for citizens, excuse me, who may not appreciate the size of that facility, unless I'm mistaken, they have a huge South Main Street frontage on that building. It's maybe half of that block or 3/4 of that block. And then it continues over to South Wayne Street, where they have the same amount, and it extends clear down to Clark.
Right.
And am I correct? That's the facility as,
That is the overall footprint of the property. There's a, near the midpoint of the building where the loading docks are at, that used to be an open corridor. There was a rail spur that went through there, as best we can tell, and it's since been closed in as the buildings were connected. But it's really from that point north is where the production activity or their utilization of the building will occur. The structures to the south are less conducive to their, less accommodating or fitting of their needs. So they're actively working with others in the local industries to provide warehousing space, and/or we've had some good conversations about some potential adaptive reuse of the space. One of the tenants from the Southtown Sports and Recreation Campus across the street has taken up a temporary home in the building to provide for some additional space for their needs. So they've been really good to work with, and then we've been introducing them to others in the neighborhood and the community, and they're really engaged and interested in how they can be a part of helping revitalize that neighborhood.
just for perspective, that building came into prominence when they were making blankets for Pullman cars on the railroad. Now think about that for a second. That's been a while. And again, an older building, and if they're willing to invest in upgrading it, improving it, I think, God bless them. That's going to be good for the city.
Well, I'm glad that we can work with them and provide the means to make this happen. Okay, any other questions or comments?
Comments from citizens? About this?
It is about this. Tom Homan, 1803 Nicklin Avenue. This sounds like a great use of city funds to try to attract new businesses and get some of those vacant buildings filled up that I think you guys have been getting talked about last year. Everybody kind of pointing that out. I did have a question about the terms of the loan. Is there anything in the contract that would encourage that money to be spent with local companies where possible for those renovations to happen?
Question.
There is actually, and they've already got quotes. Same thing, they've been very good about coming to us and asking who are the local vendors who we should call. Good. So that's who they're talking to, are some of the local roofers and suppliers and folks who are in Piqua, or at least in our zip code, to the extent those vendors exist in our immediate area.
All right. Sounds like a good use of money then.
Yep, thank you.
you.
Great question.
Good question.
Any other comments? Aye.
About the chickens.
Not yet.
Okay, Dolores Brown at 1020 Lincoln.
Oh, Dolores.
It seems funny, we can dig up money for his building and everything, but we can't dig up enough money in this town to give the kids a swimming pool or fix our fountain park. Why is that? We digging up money for everything but two things like that. The kids need a swimming pool. I got great-grandkids, and I'm almost 90. I'm not getting in my damn car and taking these kids to Troy or to Sydney. I live here. I want a pool, and they need to fix your pavilion out to the fountain park. Because the one out to Fountain Park, I am calling our senator about it because we know him, because I got a grandson that does his telephone stuff. I'm gonna ask him to get involved. If they try to tear down that building, we'll
You're
hear
talking about
about
the
it.
Ants Pavilion?
Hands
Yeah.
Pavilion?
Yeah,
No.
Can't say that
we'd
word.
invite you to join us Thursday night for the town hall meeting. I anticipate there will be others who will be asking questions
Yep.
about the Hanson Pavilion. And again, we're Thursday night, 7 o'clock here, and we would invite you to come and share those comments.
See, that's the trouble with this town. They leave everything run down, and then they can't fix it. And like, we got somebody coming in from Italy. I could tell you stories about that oil fella. All my people work there. Anyhow, I'm glad they're putting a
Yeah.
thing in there. I really am.
Dolores,
But
we
it's a
approve.
sad thing that sat empty to what.
Sat
but
empty
it
for a
looks
long
funny
time.
That we find money for everything except for our own town. Which
Thank you.
Yorkville is our town, but it ain't helping the kids in it.
Yeah.
All right, thank
Thanks,
you.
thanks, Dolores.
All right, any other comments?
Yeah, real quick.
Was there any projections on tax revenue as a result of receiving this new business here in Piqua?
Yeah, I can tell you in their business plan, they forecasted their activity in North America to expand by 3 times over the course of the next 5 years. So if you start looking at the numbers specific to this location, some of it's assumptions based upon what they're anticipating in terms of bringing the 1 production line here and then hopefully additional lines. You can do some basic math and figure the 60,000 per position if there's 20 jobs, $1.2 million in annual income earnings by the employees. So, you know, the income tax that we would collect would be from that. There's also the corporate tax. So the benefit of our investment or the return on our investment is pretty significant in terms of the utilization of the funds. The 200,000 is going to produce a lot more than that in return for our community, in addition to preserving that bricks and mortar that is in need of repair, frankly, and the alternative, the cost implications to the community if it were to sit vacant and become further deteriorated, you know, would be pretty significant. The taxes lost off of the structure and/or the cost of demolition would easily be a 7-figure project.
So if I understand it correctly, we're giving them, loaning them some money now, and over the course of 4 years, we get all that money back. And then we also get an extra 20 jobs and a lot of tax revenue over the course of many years to come.
And interest.
That's exactly.
And
All right.
Is that a win-win?
I think so. Then maybe you guys can buy you guys can use some of that money to buy a pool, maybe.
Maybe. Let's hope. It's a win-win. I like it.
I think it's important to note that revolving loan fund is in its infancy stages. It's one of our first ones. I
yeah.
think it's an investment because you get that money back plus interest to encourage more businesses, and then that exponentially grows over the years. So it is more of a long-term, but it does create those opportunities too.
And
Using the interest to build that pool.
Correct. So then you have more funds to loan out to bring more funds back in and attract other investors.
And that's why asking these questions is vital. I mean, because more and more citizens are finding out more and more details by you asking questions and coming to these meetings. And so we want more and more people to come and ask vital questions like you did. So thank you.
The tax revenue, which comes from employees.
Yeah. Well, and like I
Yeah.
said, it's a revolving loan fund, and the money's supposed to just keep revolving for the benefit.
For the benefit of the
It's a
city,
win-win.
ultimately. So it's a good thing. I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution carried. It's now time for public comment. This is an opportunity for citizens to address the City Commission regarding agenda items, issues, or to provide information. Comments are requested to be limited to 5 minutes, and specific questions should be addressed to the City Manager's office. The City Manager's office will respond at the following meeting during the City Manager's report. Time for public comment.
Tom Homan, 1803 Nicklin Avenue. So tonight I wanted to talk a little bit about the tragedy that's befallen East Palestine on the other side of Ohio. I don't know if I necessarily need to go through all the stuff that happened there. I think everybody's well aware of that, unfortunately. But it made me think about what would happen here, and looking at the response from the city, the county, the state, and the federal government, it seems that the citizens of East Palestine are not happy with how that was handled for a lot of reasons. We in Piqua do not have that issue, thankfully, right now, so now would be a great time for us to kind of take a look at thinking about what if worst case scenario. Similar to East Palestine, we have a set of railroad tracks that go through town. We have one main line with several sidings that go through town. There's at least 4 or 5 crossings, depending on how far out you look. That track is operated by CSX. If you look on the Ohio database, actually it's the Federal Rail Administration database. I also cross-referenced it with a database from the state of Ohio. CSX has had 181 accidents in the year of 2022. 60 of those were derailments. So you know, there's always a possibility that something like that could happen here. So I have a few key questions that I'd like to direct to the city manager that hopefully we can get a quick response to at the next commission meeting. And then some longer term ideas or requests for how we might think about what we would do in a situation like this. So specific questions is, do we have some kind of disaster plan as a city that covers the type of ecological disaster that occurred in East Palestine if it were to happen here? So I'd be looking for next commission meeting, just a yes or no, not necessarily like a full presentation of what it is, but just kind of a quick investigation. Sometimes these plans get made years, decades ago, and they get put on a shelf somewhere and nobody knows where they are. Another question would be, do we have any baseline water testing for the several chemicals that the EPA listed as potentially being on the train that went through East Palestine? That would include vinyl chloride, butyryl acrylate, ethyl hexyl acrylate, ethylene glycol monobutylate ether, that one I think is in vape pens, and then isobutylene. So if we have, just a yes or no question is, do we have any baseline testing on that? And then do we have any intention of starting to do some testing on that now that that may be a problem? And then another specific question would be, are we aware if CSX, operating that rail line through the town, do they have any mandates to provide inspection reports or anything like that in compliance to either us or to the county or to the state? And if so, do we ever look at these as a city? Are we actually checking up on them to make sure that maybe they're 2 years behind on their inspection and we don't know about it? So it might be that they do submit these reports to somebody, but if we aren't aware of that, then maybe they're getting away with something that maybe they shouldn't be. So I'd love to hear from city manager if we could get some, and it doesn't have to be super in depth, just yes or no, kind of a quick evaluation of, do we have any of these things available? Have we thought about them? Where they might be, and then longer term, if we do or don't have a disaster plan, it'd be great if we came up with one, talked about it a little bit, and maybe sometime by the end of Q1 or Q2, if we could get some kind of presentation from the city administration as to what the disaster plan entails, who to talk to, who's in charge, what's the different thresholds for various things, how is that communicated? And I think it'd be great to invite the police and fire chiefs, the sheriff, and representatives from the hospital to be a part of that discussion. There's also, it'd be cool if we could get in the next year some kind of mock disaster exercise. There's a lot of kind of third-party groups that will put those on for cities like this. And actually, if you go to FEMA's website, they actually offer training for free for city governments for various kinds of disaster preparedness techniques. So it might be of interest if over the course of the next year we could look into getting something like that for the city and have some kind of plan.
Thank you.
Would you like me to respond today so you don't have to come back next week?
Well, I'll definitely come back next weekend or in 2 weeks anyways. But yeah, if you did have some answers to those, I figured some of those you probably did have answers to, but I didn't want to press you if you didn't. But yeah,
Fine. Yeah, so the county emergency management, they have sorry about that feedback. They have a director that on an annual basis provides training, and we do tabletop exercises. It may not be specific to a train derailment and dealing with those chemicals. That's kind of an oddity in the terms of what we deal with. But certainly we do have exercises. It's got a cross pollination between police, fire, city administration. So that's done not just with the city, but as a county. So, and I think they're pretty well prepared. I've gone through the similar tabletop exercises out of state, and I think they're pretty advanced for what we're looking at. With regard to the baseline water testing, at this time, there's really no need because we're upwind and upstream of everything, so our groundwater doesn't really interact at all with the Ohio River, but really by the time it got into it. Do we have plans to test? Not until there's some reason to start testing that.
And finally, the CXS mandate for compliance, that compliance is out of our jurisdiction. And again, we can't really provide oversight to other agencies that are supposed to be sure that these, whether it's rail or, FAA, anything like that, that's really outside our wheelhouse. I guess best case is if you just get online to see if, they filed accurately.
Okay.
A couple comments. I don't know whether you've lived in the community long enough to remember, but we had a huge paint distribution plant that went up in flames in the northern Dayton area, and they actually let it burn because they were afraid that some of the chemicals would go down into the aquifer, and that happened in North Dayton. It's been, 10 years ago, something like that. And then we also had a large train derailment at Miamisburg, which has been a little bit longer than that. And as I recall, phosphorus was one of the issues that came up in that, and they were showing replays of that on TV as to say, okay, what's the Miami Valley doing in terms of that? The other comment, I saw Governor DeWine on TV offering comments about what I would call train oversight. And my suspicion is that the concern from East Palestine is going to be sufficient, that you're going to see at least a review of that from the state and maybe the national level. And we want to watch that carefully to see, because I think what I heard was a couple of the employees of the railroad were raising concerns about the weight of the train, and the maintenance on the train, and all kinds of things, which I can't do, and I rely on someone else to do.
Yeah, and I'm not necessarily suggesting that we take over oversight over rail. Obviously, there is definitely agencies at the state and federal level that handle that. My request would just be merely, let's as a city just take a look and query those agencies. Hey, are they up to date? And if they're not up to date, not that we go take over administering that, just encourage the authorities or speak to our Ohio, our state level Congress members, to try to encourage these agencies to do their job, and just kind of double checking that they did do their job and not just assuming that it happened. But yeah, and you pointed out the aquifer. We actually are sitting on one of the most important aquifers in all of North America. It's one of the biggest and purest and deepest. So it's probably pretty important that we keep good
Keep
care
it
of
that way.
Yeah, we would probably do that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So thank you.
Are there any other comments? Go ahead, Jim.
Jim Verhoets, excuse me, 1222 Nicklin. Chris, congratulations. You got quite a group from your area.
Really, I know, I love it.
Yeah, so I think that's great. Also, we got some young guys here that have just moved to Piqua. One is already on a committee, another one wants to get on a committee. We think it's great. We just got to know these young men, and that's what we need. We really need that. I think Piqua's going the right way. We came into town Saturday and Sunday night. Sunday night, the Crooked Handle was packed.
Yep.
You don't see that in Piqua on a Sunday night.
You get people
And
from all over.
referees, busy.
Yep.
The restaurant, Thistle was busy. That's a good sign. We like that.
We do
I don't want to
too.
keep going out of town to go have fun. So anyhow, I think we are moving. I know Chris had a lot to do with that. We appreciate it. And I think we're going in the right direction. And as far as developing these old dilapidated buildings, long overdue. I've been here for a long time. Some of these buildings have sat and sat and sat. So it's nice to see new life breathed into that.
Agreed.
And then we'll bring more young people in. And he knows a lot more than I do. I mean, I just sit there and it's nice. It's nice that people question things and show an
Yes.
interest in it.
We want them to.
Oh,
Run
definitely.
for commission.
Absolutely.
That's what we
Get
want.
involved.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
I'm gonna try to keep my cool.
Oh, Lord.
Now, Dolores.
Dolores Brown, 1020 Lincoln Street. Are we allowed to talk about the chickens
Sure, you
tonight?
can talk.
This is public
Okay.
comment.
What do you want to say?
I don't want chickens.
Okay.
One thing, I think it's cruel. They said they're gonna put them in cages, right? How would you like to be in a cage 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That's cruelty.
Okay.
You don't do that to no kind of animal, a chicken, cat, or nothing. You don't do stuff like that. I'm dead against it, and I said this, if they allow chickens, I'm gonna ask for the committee to let me put back up our outhouses we used to have.
Yeah, I grew up in having an outhouse.
Yeah, we had
Yes,
two
I
of
did.
them. One had 3 holes and one had 2.
I grew up in Rossville, and we had outhouses there.
Darn right you did. And they wasn't any more stinking than the chickens were they leave?
I didn't fall in it, thank God, I can tell you that much,
No, but I had a neighbor guy
it did smell, yes.
The kid moved his house over, and the old guy come out and fell in, and they had to call.
See,
the
I
vet.
know,
Yeah.
they're dangerous,
That's
so
why
you're
we
right.
had the lilies around the outhouse, right?
But we don't need chickens. That's cruelty, what they're talking to do.
My understanding is that the chicken ordinance is coming up first
Well, that's
meeting in
what I
March,
said,
is that
it's
right?
It's going to
right
planning
time.
commission, right?
Okay.
It went to the planning commission, and the planning commission wanted some revisions, so I don't believe it will be here first meeting in March, because it's going in front of the planning commission again, and they asked for specific revisions and information. It's going to take a little bit of time, so.
Yeah, okay.
Why waste our time?
There are people that do want chickens, and they have a right to explore that opportunity too, don't
Want
they?
them moved to the country.
Oh, so just kick everybody out that doesn't agree with you? Is that what you're saying?
Look, 20,000 people, this is what you got, so you ain't gonna be kicking out too many.
I won't be kicking them out of this room,
Well-
but we get contacted by lots of people that do want them. That's why we brought it up for
And I think
discussion.
What you said about the eggs, you know what I told my grandson?
What?
Quit smoking, quit vamping, and quit buying energy drinks. You can buy a dozen of eggs, Josh.
I don't do any of that stuff. But so eggs are still expensive to me, but the prices are starting to come down.
$2.99 a dozen.
Yeah, they're starting to come down.
We
You're right.
appreciate your comments.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Oh, God.
All right, we'll go to the city manager's report.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. I have a few items. First is my biweekly reminder to sign up for Smart Hub. In doing so, you can pay your bills online, monitor your activity and your usage, and if you don't sign up, you can always make a payment after hours, nights and weekends at Speedway, Marathon, right across the street, Family Dollar, Dollar General, CVS, or Walmart at your convenience. Also, too, we observed President's Day yesterday, so refuse collection will be 1 day late. Friday will be on Saturday. Please remember, too, that our refuse drivers will only collect what is in the carts and not allowed to leave the truck to collect items that are outside the cart. So please break down your boxes and get them in the recycle. That's it for my report this evening.
All right, thank you.
Do we know how we're doing with the electronic surveillance that will be attached to the refuse trucks? Have we received that? I mean, I'm still hearing complaints about trash containers being left in the street, left on the right-of-way. Have we received that that technology yet?
Right, so we do have cameras on the truck. The difficulty comes in with not being correlated with a GIS system yet. So it's very difficult to pinpoint an exact location. We can attempt to go back and find specific video. It just takes a lot of time. But what the drivers are trying to do is make sure they're communicating with customers if they have put the recycling or the trash out incorrectly. They have little hangers that they will leave on the carts notifying the customer of what the issue was. They also they provide information to our office, to Melissa, and let her know if they were unable to collect a cart for a specific reason, like it was blocked by a car or what have you. And then customers that call in, Melissa can notify them why it wasn't collected.
If you want a test area, you can test my block. We have our share of non-compliance with what I would call the drop-off and then the retrieval of those. And I'd be happy to supply an address whenever you're ready, so.
Do you know, we did get some complaints before about trash being missed on pickups. I haven't heard anything in some time, so I don't know if that was addressed or if we're still having any issues or.
We're having very few. Ones that aren't being collected, there's typically a reason why it was not collected. We did have some difficulty when we made some adjustments with the automated routes. You know, it was a big change and a big adjustment for the drivers, you know, because they were so very used to collecting the cans in certain locations, and when we made that change, that we did have some difficulties, but I think those have been ironed out.
Am I up? All right. Speaking of the chickens, I know that did get brought up because of some popularity that was brought to us about wanting chickens. And so honestly, in my ward, I've probably gotten about 50-50 percentage of who wants it and who doesn't. So I would encourage those that have a certain opinion to let me know, as well as the other commissioners. That really does help provide insight onto what our district has. I can say I got a lot of interest in bringing in chickens, and now that the topic's getting brought up, I'm getting a lot more interest on not having them as well. So I think it's been good feedback, so I do encourage people to voice their opinions one way or the other. We will be having that as an ordinance. There'll be 3 readings, a lot of opportunities for people to come and bring that up. So I did want to encourage people to be able to be more involved. I know that's a project I've been working on. The last work session we had, I brought that up. We didn't have a lot of time, so I did want to ask if we're still looking at having a work session where we can discuss the commissioner structure, mainly because the elections are coming up, as well as I think the past like 6 out of 7 we've ran unopposed, and I think that's an opportunity for us.
Yeah, if you'd like that, I would work with Mayor Pearson to get that set up.
Okay, I really would. I think just encourage some discussion around it, whether anything should change or not. I think there's opportunity, but for the lack of involvement, I think that there's probably opportunity on what we can do to drive more people. Tom, I appreciate you guys volunteering to be a part of the boards and such. I think that is important, as you said, Jim. And you talked about the water testing coming on utility boards. Definitely something we can talk about. So I appreciate you guys. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Lee.
Well, I've been getting some chicken questions. Most of the questions against are outside of my ward, and feel free. I have no problem with that. And then I do get a lot of people that want them. So, like he said, it's 50-50. But I think our job as commissioners is to bring these items to the public's awareness and have input from them before any decision is made. Getting great input. Heard from Dolores tonight, and I appreciate that. And heard from Rich Donnelly. I hope he doesn't mind me saying his name, but and several other people. And I think it's great that we're getting feedback, and that's how you can tell that your citizens are involved in their community when they're talking to you about issues that are important to them. So keep doing that. Keep getting involved. These guys, I love the fact that they're getting on boards and committees. Hopefully, both of you guys will get on some board. Get on board on something. I would love to have you. We may have some openings more openings in community diversity. So look for that. That'd be awesome for you guys. Just because of the people that we get, we just need more commitment out of. So, and you guys are honestly committed. So coming to meetings and stuff like this, I love it. I want to congratulate Piqua Basketball for winning their first tournament game, and Lehman Basketball for winning their first. Lehman plays tonight. I think it's at 8. They have a game tonight. So it's my son's team, and so they're out at Piqua High School playing, and we'll wish them good luck, and thankful that they're doing well. And look forward to Thursday. Thursday is supposed to be close to 70 degrees, so people don't go crazy out there because it's so warm. And just be careful, and keep attending meetings, stay involved, and contact us if you need or have any questions or need anything. That's all I've got to say.
For those of us who are Pisces, we understand the season changes.
It's changing. Yes, it is.
All right, thank you. My turn. If you haven't read today's newspaper, you should look at the article that I read this morning that says that the Miami Valley Today newspaper will, in the near future, be moving to only 2 days of delivery a week. I understand the financials of that. I'm not critical necessarily of that, but I think that we are in a changing time, and probably have been for some time, but it's important the way we give out information, receive information. Social media has, I think, taken over as a process. Not all social media is accurate. And so we just have to be careful that we understand how we deliver important information and how we receive it and all those good kinds of things. So take a look at that article if you get the paper. It's an interesting kind of thing. I would share with you that Commissioner Lee and I would disagree about chickens, and I have compiled what I call Vetter's 10 Reasons for Not Having Chickens in Piqua. I have a long list, and at the appropriate time I will share that list of specifics. But I'm receiving calls as well, and I would say that my opinion is that it's not a 50-50. There's a lot of people opposed, and they're expressing their opinion. The last thing I would offer is what I call Vetter's List for Good Citizens. My first attempt was to say good citizens are kind, and I think that's an important characteristic. Volume 1, Chapter 2, good citizens are helpful. Volume 1, Chapter 3, good citizens are perseverant. And my current offer today is that good citizens are vigilant. And I think that when we have participation in meetings, that's an example of vigilance. And I think that's an important thing to offer. Thank you for my opportunity.
Thank you. All right, I just wanted to remind everyone, we have a town hall. That's Thursday, February 23rd, in a couple of days at 7 p.m. And our Chris Measing will be our presenter that evening. He'll be able to tell us all the new things that are happening in Piqua. The other thing I wanted to say about the chickens and the ordinances is that be an informed citizen as well. Get the facts, the true facts, understand the facts, ask the questions, the important questions, and we'll all be better off for it. So we don't jump to conclusions, but allow everyone to say their mind. So that's all I had. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So
Make a
moved.
motion. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All of those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.